Hello, everybody. I'm Boomer Isles, and I want to welcome you to a special quarantined edition of the Wrestling Roundtable. When we first talked about launching this, it was going to be us sitting around an actual roundtable. Unfortunately, that's not able to be done right now. But I'm joined by Saint Adam and Chris Malice from the Chris and Adam Show. And also Mike Hussein, who's my co-host on the Wrestling Roundtable once we get it up and going. Thank you guys for joining me like this.
Oh, no problem.
All right, well, there's been a couple of pretty newsworthy things in WWE. First, we want to mention, obviously, the passing of Howard Finkel, 69 years old. A lot of people that grew up in the Attitude Era really remember him as being the iconic ring announcer of WWE. So it's definitely a huge loss for the WWE family, and we want to send our condolences to his family. The other big news that happened last week was the bankruptcy and dissolution of the XFL. So I want to ask, did any of you guys did any of you guys watch the XFL?
No. I guess with this going on, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Well, what the fuck point of him even doing it to begin with? Before this shit even happened, what was the whole fucking point? Did you hear how Roosevelt got sold? Well, it was actually sold before the shit hit the fan. It's almost like he knew.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think he knew it was coming down the pike, that they knew going into it that they weren't going to be profitable for, I think, 2 years is what the word said. And they just went ahead and pulled the plug. I watched a couple games. It was okay. Obviously you're not going to have the star power, but I don't understand his need to do things outside of the wrestling world.
I get as an entrepreneur, you want to do something different. But here's the thing. He's doing something different that he failed at years ago, and he failed miserably at.
Oh, yeah. Miserable.
I think it was a passion project for him. It didn't work out before, and now he invested his own personal money in this. What do you do? Sell off $300 million worth of...
Yeah, he sold a bunch of stocks, and like I said, they knew it wasn't going to be profitable, but when it started, the ratings were pretty decent, and as the weeks went on, they started to decline.
No, I actually feel bad for him because I know this meant a lot to him. And I told you before, it also keeps his attention away from Raw and SmackDown.
Right.
So he's not fucking it up.
That's sad. You got to have his attention taken away from Raw and SmackDown to not fuck it up.
What age do you think it's going to be before he finally retires?
He should have retired 3 years ago.
Right.
I think he'll go to the day he dies. I don't think Vince will ever retire.
He needs to give the reins to Hunter.
Yeah.
And let him fucking whatever do what he's doing, what he did for NXT for that fucking program.
Right.
Oh God. Hunter understands who to build up, who to put over, what to put out there. Vince has lost fucking touch real bad.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Nothing against Reigns. I think it took a lot of balls for him to pull out of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, considering that if he got COVID, he will die. That is a fucking guarantee.
Yeah.
But I don't want us wooing a fucking leukemia survivor. And I think if you guys watched that Royal Rumble where it came down to him and Drew, the crowd, when it started to look like Reigns could win it, the crowd started quickly turning on him. It's like, please, Vince, don't do this. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Have you heard about what's going on now with Reigns? Vince won't let them mention his name on TV at all to explain why he's not there. A lot of people have been wondering, does this he's mad at Roman for pulling out, and are there going to be repercussions? So wait, what happened with Roman Reigns?
Well, WrestleMania, he was supposed to take on Goldberg, but he ended up pulling out because he's a leukemia survivor. And he has low immune system.
Not as strong as everyone else's.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he got COVID, he would die. He's in that demographic that kiss your fucking life goodbye. You know, as much as earning a paycheck and all that type of stuff, if your boss is telling you to risk, and he's got a little bit. So
he's free to have twins.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure his thought process is they don't deserve to go on through life not having their dad, so I don't give a shit about going against Goldberg or whatever. Which
Right.
is right for yourself.
Honestly, I think they should have postponed WrestleMania and just did a special that they filmed at the Performance Center. There's no need to have it. If anything, especially if it gets back to where it's supposed to be, have it in September, have it in October. I don't think there was a need to do the biggest show of the year in an empty building.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
even
think screwed the most on that was Drew McIntyre. Did he?
Yeah.
No. Fuck Braun. No one gave a shit about that match.
Yeah, no.
But Drew, he after all the issues he had back when he was first with the company, to come back, to reinvent yourself, to, bulk up as much as he did, he beat Brock, who they booked as like the most dominating guy, and he did it. He should have been in front of like thousands of screaming fans.
right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's where Edge got screwed too. He should have had a crowd there for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at AEW. They were going to do the blood and guts, and then they didn't because they don't want to give away that match in front of no people.
Yeah.
I think it'd be smarter just to hold off on WrestleMania. If not, just skip it this year and do it next year. But yeah, I mean, it took a lot of spotlight off of a lot of people that haven't had the spotlight in the last couple of years, like Drew. I definitely think they should have just postponed it. Just count your losses and go on with it.
Well, here's my thing. Now, because WWE is now notorious for crippling pushes of megastars in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that they're going to hold against fucking Drew when they're like, oh, you're not drawing that much?
Right.
Oh, you had me fucking win the belt in an empty fucking arena.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. There was no benefit of holding it. They I guess they streamed it on Fight TV and they didn't get very many buys because who wants to watch that? Who wants to pay to watch an empty arena match?
Yeah.
Or an
empty
show? Yeah, exactly.
There was because I watched the whole thing. There was a lot of that was pretty good. And my match of the night was Charlotte versus Ripley. Now knowing what happened with Ripley, I get why they put the belt on Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
Ripley had back to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's another reason why they put the belt on Charlotte, because NXT is competing against AEW. They're losing. You put Charlotte on the show, that's going to get more views.
Hey, look.
Yeah.
If it gets me a second match with them two women, I'm all fucking for it. I thought they did.
Create a finish start, and I
It was just like a little bit of a roller coaster, up and down on like some of the quality of what you were watching.
Yeah.
I think the Boneyard or the Boneyard match.
Look, I could say something about the Boneyard match. It was a good fight scene for a movie. And if that's the stuff Vince wants to do, you could have that as WWE fight scenes and just film them like that. But I don't think you should do that for any pay-per-view anymore.
Well, I think what it did do well is it hid a lot of the weaknesses that a lot of
the Taker has now.
Yeah, the wear and tear on Taker. It hid that stuff very well.
Yeah.
It does, you can't really call it a wrestling match, and it probably shouldn't be on WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still cannot figure out what the fuck I watched with the Firefly Funhouse match. They like that match. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I liked the Undertaker AJ Styles match way more than I expected.
I mean, it was good for what it was, but I would not have put that on
Come on, AJ. It's what you wanted.
Why are you stealing all my colors?
It's what you wanted, AJ.
I'm gonna color.
Okay, next time,
You talk shit. Taker talks shit pretty good.
Yeah.
Now what's he gonna do if he doesn't have the club anymore?
Yeah, that, hopefully that doesn't mean we start seeing a barrel of AJ.
He already got buried, remember?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, literally. Well, let's talk about that. You mentioned the club being gone. WWE. Actually, when I started doing my podcast, Flying Cravat, I did a pay-per-view review with Adam where we talked about what we would do to fix WWE. And they just did what I said that they should do, and that's get rid of all the people that have been there for 10, 12 years that haven't drawn, that haven't really gotten over. And that's exactly what they did with some of the people that they let go. Some of the people that they did, I didn't quite agree with, like the club, but they had just signed a big deal to keep them away from AEW, and I think that they dropped the ball early on with the club. As you guys know, I went to the same wrestling school that Carl Anderson did. He partially trained me, and I refereed. I can't even count how many matches. Watching him work every weekend, he's such a good worker. He's such a good talker, and they just kind of lumped him and Luke Gallows as a mid-tier tag team. And when they debuted it, I thought they did it well because it was in the middle of a tag team tournament. They attacked the Usos, and the Usos, who their cousin is Roman Reigns, who was at the time in a feud with AJ. So you have that linkage, and then that didn't really go anywhere. And then they did the thing where AJ turned on Cena, and then the very next night they did. I believe it was Carl Anderson versus John Cena, and Cena basically squashed him in about 3 minutes, and then the club jumped in. So I think after that, they were just a middle tier tag team, which they were so big in Japan and in the U.S. before they went over to Japan, and I think that they really dropped the ball on them. I'm happy to see the Revival finally free. I think that if they do sign with AEW, they're going to have some really good matchups. Out of the guys that were released, you've got Rusev. Who do you think could make the jump to AEW? Who do you think would be really good and really good? Go ahead.
Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's remember AEW might have to start laying people off if they're hurting for money because of all this. So I don't know if you can assume that a lot of these people are automatically going to go to AEW.
Right.
Well, here's my thing, and I'm going to make a quick caveat here. We could do a top, 50 list of people that made a name for themselves before they were in the WWE or on the main roster, and then they fucking dropped the ball on.
Yeah.
Like the Revival, Finn Balor, Shinsuke.
Oh, yeah.
I think if I was working for AEW, I would be signing Rusev quicker than shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
He's good at getting...
I was looking at that list, and a couple names that popped out were Rusev and Zack Ryder. What do they have against guys that get over in spite of the booking?
Vince once.
Damian Sandow, he got over, and they did nothing with him. Zack Ryder, when he was doing his internet champion, he got over. And Rusev, they put that stupid gimmick with him and Aiden. He actually made it work where people wanted to root for him, and they buried him.
Well, let's look at how they buried him too. They put him in one of the worst storylines I have ever seen.
Right. I agree.
You can't tell me that, that wasn't because Mike and Maria Kanellis no longer wanted to do that storyline.
Yeah.
Can you fucking blame him?
No,
Yeah.
I don't blame you. I blame Vince for even putting it together because apparently he likes those type of storylines.
What's with him and fucking marriage crashing?
I'm not going to blame Vince all the way because Heyman had a hand in it too.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, Rusev actually pitched it to get on TV. He shouldn't have been off TV and having to come up with something to get on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, again, he got over, and they didn't like the way he did, and it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, they've done that so many times over the years. Like when Daniel Bryan, when he got over, they didn't like the way he did it, and they didn't push him until he made it impossible for him to not push him.
Yeah.
I mean, but Zack Ryder pretty much made it impossible. I mean, do you remember, what was it, 2011 when The Rock came back? And The Rock is doing a promo, and they're chanting, "We want Ryder," so loud that it starts to drown The Rock out.
Right.
And this is a Rock talking about.
Yeah.
Well, here, and sit there going, do they hate money that just falls into their lap?
Yeah.
I don't know what they want with this. You know, it's kind of like how they didn't want to push Becky Lynch at first when she was, you know, they turned her heel and everyone cheered for her because they're like, yeah, finally, you know, we can get behind this.
Right.
And they tried, they couldn't make her a heel where she's, you know, cutting promos on the audience and no one's buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have way too many misfires. Here's my thing. The more overstars you have, the more different things you can do, the more you prolong the life of your program.
Yeah.
You can have different people with the belt eventually. You can have decent title runs that aren't like ridiculously long and drawn out and people don't want to friggin' support anymore. You know, the more overstars, the more fucking money you're going to end up making.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You know, it's just crazy the way that they do it. And like I said, if someone gets over when they're not supposed to, they're punished, and it doesn't make sense. Because run with it. See what the legs are on Rusev Day. They never tried.
The push that Zack Ryder did.
Yeah.
The Social Justice Warrior just did a video about the rise and fall of Zack Ryder. I really recommend everyone check it out because it is pretty good.
Okay.
It covers everything.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I know people will complain about some of the goofiness of AEW, but I stand by any statement I made in the past. AEW would not exist if it wasn't for fucking Vince's incompetence.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Once he bought WCW, it's just, you know, you watch I was watching the Ruthless Era new documentary, and it's just like they just stopped trying. There's no reason to be better than any other company because the only real rival companies were either in Japan or Mexico. There was no one even close after they bought ECW and WCW, and it's just like they just started phoning it in.
You know, it's funny because Impact tried, but when you got Vince Russo writing everything, how much of a fighting chance do you have?
None.
Well, there's that, plus when they fucking got Hogan on there. What Impact should have been doing all the time was being the direct competition, like the different product than fucking WWE.
Yeah.
And
you know, the thing that they
ring, man.
The only thing it seems like they really tried to do is when Vince no longer let them, you know, he tried to drop the word wrestling from everything the company did. So then TNA is like, oh, you know, we're wrestling. That's the only thing they tried to do differently.
Yeah.
Still something different.
Yeah. So Adam and I actually were talking about this. I think it was on Monday that, you know, AEW has some kind of dumb gimmicks, but I feel like if they got Rusev, they would know what to do with them. If they got the revival,
especially take them to AEW.
Yeah.
Because all the teams on AEW like to do a lot of the flashy stuff, flips, dives, everything. What you do is the Revival doesn't wrestle like that. You have them go in as the biggest heel tag team, and every time, like the Young Bucks or someone try to do one of those high spots, they cut them off.
Yeah.
That's how you get the crowd.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like early or maybe mid TNA when Samoa Joe first came in, and he had that famous spot where someone would go for a flip, instead of standing there and catching them, he would just walk away. They could do stuff like that, and I think they would do great. I think that it's a no-brainer to bring in the club for the Elite versus Inner Circle feud. Even if they splinter off and do an Elite versus the club, I think it makes sense. I know that it was rumored that they were headed to AEW before, if they got the release, and then WWE signed them to new contract and promised them a major storyline, which I guess they kind of got. But if you look at the list of people from the main roster, it's either people that have been there for, like I said, 10 years. Even though we just recently came back, Curtis Hawkins had been there for, a solid decade and never really got over. Or it's guys that they just completely dropped the ball on.
I feel bad for Drake Maverick. Did you see that video of him?
I did. Yes, I did.
I felt horrible watching that.
I mean, he was where he wanted to be, and they never really gave him a chance either. Like when he was on NXT 205 Live, as the commissioner, that's fine. But you put him with AOP, and you make it all about him pissing his pants. The guy doesn't have a chance to get over.
Yeah,
and I mean, if you watch him in TNA, he can talk. He can be an annoying, pissant heel. They never let him try.
No, they tried to do something with the 24/7 belt, and I think that thing is deaf.
Who cares? Who cares about that championship? No one.
Unless it is our truth, that belt is just going to hurt you.
Yeah.
That's the next thing they need to do, is get rid of 90% of their belts. But that's or championships. Vince McMahon doesn't like the word belts.
Man, he's fucking goofy.
Yeah, he is. All right. So there have been a couple Dark Side of the Rings that have come out. I know, Adam, you were kind of excited to talk about this with Chris, but let's talk with the craziest one that I watched over the last couple weeks, and that's my buddy New Jack. A little story. So I trained and I wrestled for the Northern Wrestling Federation in Cincinnati, Ohio, and there for a while there was a competing promotion right there in Cincinnati, and it was kind of a hardcore promotion, and New Jack did go there quite a bit, and we heard some stories about him, just how batshit crazy he is. I honestly, I wish there would have been someone that could really rope him in and get him away from trying to legitimately kill people in the ring, because he has a lot of charisma. He can get a crowd riled up. I mean, there's no question about that. But you have to deal with attempted homicides.
Yeah, you better, if you book him, you better have a lawyer on fucking standby.
Yeah. So.
Have enough money for a fucking retainer.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the mass transit incident, and I want to get everyone's opinion. So, actually, from that, I didn't know that mass transit. I guess he was doing local shows, and he actually sent it in. I thought he was just sitting in the crowd, and when they realized that they were a wrestler down, because it happens. We were always told, take your gear with you, because if you go to a wrestling show, a local show, and someone says we're down a wrestler, you can say, hey, I was trained by so and so, I got my gear with me. That does happen a lot, but I guess this guy was actually brought in, and he was going to wrestle two little people, or two midget wrestlers, and they changed it around. So what do you guys remember about that story of the mass transit incident?
Chris, you were longer ago.
Oh, Jesus. First mistake number fucking one. Do not, repeat, do not. If you have a fucking kid, you shouldn't be taking them to an ECW show.
Right.
That's fucking second. Even if you are, I guess, cool enough a parent to take your kid to that, if they say, hey, I want to participate, you go like, fuck that.
Right.
Let alone lie about the fucking kid's age.
Right.
You know, people will probably not like this, but I think fucking mass transit, that a lot of that was him and his dumbass parents' fucking call.
No, I agree. And it's hard. It's hard when Heyman says something because he's got he doesn't tell the truth a lot. So I don't know if he lied about his age. I know.
Because if you watch that, if you watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode, the little guy that he brought with him even said, yeah, he had fraudulent documents, and his dad's sitting there going, oh yeah, he's 23.
Okay. I forgot about that. But so that's the first mistake. You're right, Chris. The second mistake is that he sits down between, I believe it was Devon and Taz, and lights up a cigarette. Which, you know, some locker rooms don't care. Some make you go outside. But then you're sitting next to Taz, who you know, I don't think he would take too kindly to that. Mistake number 3 is he starts telling New Jack what he wants to do, what he wants to get in. One of the first things that you're taught in wrestling school is you let the veteran lay out the match. And, you know, if they ask you what do you like to do, you tell them. But you don't sit there and you don't tell a veteran, I'm going to do this, because they might say they're going to go along with it. And as soon as they get out there, they're going to punch you in the fucking mouth. I've seen it. So
that's what happened all over the place.
Yeah.
Dude, Boomer, he forgot one thing where he went into the back and started helping himself to catering. Like he, you know, just belonged there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's there's a lot of unwritten rules of a wrestling locker room, but yeah, if you're a late addition to the show, you don't act that way for sure. You don't go to catering. You don't tell someone that, you know, here's what I want to do. I want you to give me color, and you definitely don't tell New Jack you want to get color, because New Jack's gonna give you color.
How you do those things?
Right.
Got a death wish, go right for it.
So,
you know, I blame everyone involved in this situation. Yes, New Jack shouldn't have gone as far as he did. That kid had no business being there. I blame his parents for lying. Give him in. I blame Paul for not trying to verify who this kid was, how old he was, or anything like that. And you know what's bad is, if you remember, it affected their first pay-per-view.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They almost their jobs.
Yeah, it got canceled for sure. So they're having the match, and apparently they tell Devon to stay out of the ring, and then they kind of go to work on this kid, and he's got an X-Acto knife on a piece of wood, and he in the unofficial ECW documentary, New Jack says that he cut him so deep that he saw where his skulls mended together, which is pretty terrifying. And then I believe Kid Cash says that when they were wheeling him out on an ambulance, he grabbed the door and he said something like, "No, I'm one of the boys now," or something like that. So,
well, they showed where they were wheeling him out. He flipped off the ring, so he was trying to do some kind of kayfabe, but you know, New Jack grabs the microphone. He's like, "I hope he bleeds to death."
Yeah.
New Jack being New Jack.
Yeah.
And then it's his dad in the crowd screaming, "He's only 17!
Right.
Stop the match, motherfucker! You should have thought about that before you lied." It's like Jim Cornette said, New Jack took a knife and cut this motherfucker from asshole to appetite.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I have a bunch of. When I used to live by Meyer. There was a guy there that he operated a public access metal show called Cowpaddy Paradise. His name was Thomas. At one point, he lent me a bunch of these old ECW tapes.
Mm-hmm.
It is more mature, violent-ass wrestling for fans that want to watch that stuff. Again, something you probably don't want to take your fucking kid to.
Right.
But also, definitely not something you want to lie about your kid's age to get him to participate in.
Yeah.
Even if Paul Heyman was like, oh, we'll make it safe, knowing the age, still no.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't have Kurt Angle in the crowd because he'll get all pissed off.
Yeah. That shit, fucking, I don't get where, that's like going to a fucking black metal show and going, oh, there's Satanism here, I'm so offended. What the fuck do you expect?
Right.
Go to
Yeah.
a titty bar, oh my, your tits are out. What the? Okay. That's the whole fucking point of it.
Right. So he gets, he gets pulled into court. He beats it basically because, the kid was a willing participant. And fast forward to where him and Vic Grimes fall off, I believe it's in New Hampshire. They fall off a scaffolding and Vic crushes New Jack's head. And then New Jack tried to take some revenge on him and during a scaffolding match there were like 50 tables in the ring. He tried to throw him over the ring and have him land on the turnbuckle and die basically. So he's not all there upstairs, but like I said, it's a shame because he's an entertaining guy. I love watching his videos. He's got such a personality. He just really needed someone to rein him in.
I think New Jack's best work was with Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Oh,
The
yeah.
way he beat that crowd.
Oh, my God.
And his promos were so entertaining, and he just wound them up.
Yeah. Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah, like, he's one of those dudes you love the book, but you gotta fucking be prepared for the backlash that happens.
Yeah.
Just be. If he ain't getting the heat that you want, which is a lot of fucking heat, he's going to cause a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm surprised you talked about the Hunter Red incident.
Is that the guy in Florida?
Yeah, the guy he stabbed.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Adam's talking about, there's this guy in Florida, and I actually remember watching New Jack's telling about this story, and the guy, I guess he said, I do the hardcore shit around here, and I guess he had a buddy or a girl in the crowd, so he wanted to get some color and show off, and then he locks up with New Jack and didn't know how to lock up. Then he throws a couple stiff punches, and New Jack just grabs him, and he tries to dump New Jack, and New Jack reaches in his pocket and pulls out a knife, and he stabbed him a bunch of times, and he actually got arrested from the arena, and it's just another. I sent Adam a video. I guess he was doing some local show, and this kid wouldn't lay down for the finish, so he cracked him over the head, and I mean, the kid was just spilling the blood. Like I said, it's a shame that no one could really rein him in and get him to maybe focus on actually learning to wrestle instead of relying on hardcore, because again, he's such an attraction. He's a good talker. He's got charisma. He's a liability.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't bring up from that episode of Dark Side of the Ring where both D'Lo and Jim Cornette are watching that Hunter Red match.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Freaking out. He's like, oh, holy shit, he's stabbing this guy. Like, D'Lo's like, holy, do you see this? And Jim Cornette, when he's watching, he's like, that doesn't make professional wrestling look good.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, in the history, 125-year history of professional wrestling, and this has to be the first stabbing we've had in the ring.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of stabbings back in the days when there were riots and natives got restless. There were a lot of stabbings, but usually they didn't take place in the ring. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, so if you haven't seen New Jack Dark Side of the Ring, go out of your way and see it. It's amazing. Let's go to the other one that we watched.
Oh, I've seen all of them. So which one?
Okay, the worst idea in professional wrestling history ever. Let's talk about the Brawl for All.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't just call it the world's worst idea, but no one that tunes into wrestling wants to see a tough man competition, and that's all it was. But listening to Vince Russo explain where it came from and why he still thinks it was great is just why that guy should not be in professional wrestling ever again. He should have never been in there. It just solidifies for me the fact that if he didn't have McMahon to run his ideas through, he wouldn't be he would have never came up with a good idea.
Yeah, but Boomer,
yeah.
Let's not forget, Vince signed off on the Brawl for All. He heard that pitch, and instead of saying, "What the hell is this?" Get out of here with that idea.
Yeah.
Vince signed off on it, so I mean,
he signed off and said, "That's good shit."
Yeah,
such good shit.
Case.
Yeah. So I don't remember watching the Brawl for All. I think when it came out, I was still a WCW fan. I didn't change over till maybe early '98. I don't know because I just don't remember the Brawl for All. Obviously, I've seen it now, and I've seen the outcome, which they fucked Bart Gunn, because they could have made him maybe not a main eventer, but he could have definitely been an upper mid card. Here's a guy who legitimately knocked out one of the most respected and one of the toughest wrestlers of all time in Dr. Death Steve Williams. Let's give him a badass persona and let him go out there and do that. But instead, they fed him to Butterbean, and that watching it really sucks.
How many careers were fucking destroyed because of that stupid moment?
I wouldn't say careers were destroyed, except maybe Dr. Death's
and Bart Gunn.
Well, but see, it didn't kill Bart's career. It's just, after Bart won, even Russo's like, "Oh, sorry, bro, I didn't have anything for you."
Right.
It's like, then why do this whole thing? But I don't think it ruined like a bunch of careers, but a lot of people got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, look, as you know, I'm no fan of how Bradshaw personality-wise is, but that footage of him getting knocked out and going into convulsions, that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Well, the thing about boxing, man, you have to know how to fucking land.
Yeah, well, it didn't make any sense, Chris, because they put these big-ass boxing gloves on them, but then they tell them, "Oh, you're allowed to do takedowns, but you can't do submissions when you do takedowns." Like, the rules made almost no sense. Dan Severn was in the Brawl for All. That's the guy that my money would be on, because
Right.
he was legit back when UFC was more of an outlaw promotion.
Yeah. Back when they didn't have weight classes and guys could wear, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lesnar. And he quit after his first match because he's like, the rules are so goofy, anyone could win this. It has nothing to do with tough you are. It has nothing to do with what you know. And they weren't even going to have rules originally, but then Ken Blackman pops up and says, "Can I take people down by kicking out their knees?" And they're like, "Oh, holy shit, we hadn't thought about that. We might want to put some rules in here."
Right. Yeah.
So,
we went to Blackman to come up with that.
Right.
Well, Blackman was legit. I mean, if you look at it, like, he wasn't one of these guys that go out to a bar and get into a fist fight. Like, he was a trained martial artist that knew how to hurt people.
Yeah.
Just like just like Ken Shamrock. Shamrock wanted no part of it because he knew if you're going to do something like this, you got to train. You're going to need some time to train and get in shape for, this endurance type thing, not performance. And that's something else they didn't consider. Like, no one listened to any voice of reason when it came to the Brawl for All.
Yeah.
And, the crowd didn't give a shit. Go back and watch a lot of those matches. Now, there were a couple where you can hear the crowd cheer. I think it was like when Bart Gunn knocked out Bradshaw and won the thing. Yeah, I think people were cheering. But before that, no one gave a damn because it was a bunch of mid-carders that a lot of these people, they wanted Stone Cold, The Rock, The Undertaker, Kane.
Yeah.
They weren't getting that.
Yeah.
Well, it's just asinine. It's the same thing as the work shoot match between who was it, Goldberg and Kevin Nash. You're gonna say everything else on this show is fake bullshit, but this is real. This is what you should care about. It doesn't work.
this is a fantasy booking you could do later at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they didn't do the Brawl for All, and they actually just went ahead with the program of Steve Austin versus Steve Williams. Steve Williams, I think what they thought is if he wanted, they could present him as like this tough guy who I think was going to be Vince McMahon's bodyguard to build up, for him in Austin.
Yeah.
But this is like his first real appearance in the WWE.
Right.
He gets to like the second set of tournaments, and then that's when he tears his hamstring.
Right.
And I think it like ruined his friendship with JR.
Really? Yeah, I mean,
because, like,
I think there's a lot you could do, especially if he was going to be McMahon's bodyguard in his feud with Austin. I mean, there's a ton that you could do there. But yeah, it's if you want to present him as a badass, present him as a badass. You don't have to do a tough man competition because he's got the pedigree. He's got he was revered in Japan. Him and Bam Bam Gordy. You don't have to present him as anything other than what he's already known for. And you especially don't need to put shoot fighting on a wrestling show. It was a dumb idea then. It's dumb now. And the fact that he doesn't see it and he's still sitting there like, oh, bro, this is entertaining, just shows you he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, because like I had made the comment on Twitter 7 minutes into this, and I already want to slap Vince Russo. It pissed off some Vince Russo fans. I'm like, you know what? Fuck.
He's got marks that defend him to the grave, and it's like if you watch like the last part of WWE WWF before he leaves, and then WCW, he doesn't get it. Jim Cornette said it before. He understands big spots and moments. He doesn't understand how to get the storyline there and what to do afterwards. He wanted to give us Kane and Undertaker right away instead of them not touching each other for a year. He doesn't get it, and it's because he was just a writer.
Well, and I think, and this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to be a little fair to Vince Russo right now. He, with his mind, they brought him in to get ratings, to get people to tune in to see what would happen next.
Right.
And in the Attitude Era, he did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't quite understand the business, so like you said, he'd come up with storylines, spots, but no like real, big picture type thing.
Well, it's just like it's just like Bischoff. Bischoff really only had one good idea, and that's the NWO. And once that had run its course, he didn't have anything. And it's hard to come up with something revolutionary. But it feels like him and Russo they had a little piece of the puzzle, but they could never put it on consistently like McMahon did. And I'm not saying McMahon has great ideas. He's just a great promoter.
No, he's a great promoter, and I don't know if you guys knew this. So the Brawl for All, we can all agree, was just a horrible idea.
Stupid.
Do you know back in 2009, Vince McMahon wanted to have another one?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, and everyone, I guess, had to sit there and talk him out of it because he's like, let's do another Brawl for All. But only this time he's got Triple H sitting there going, that's a horrible idea,
right.
Here's why.
And it's a horrible idea, and here's the evidence to why. You should remember this, Dad, because, you booked it, it ended badly.
Right.
I mean, hell, I think the closest thing we had to another Brawl for All is when Brock Lesnar murdered Randy Orton.
Yeah, and then Jericho confronted him afterwards.
Chris Jericho, I gotta hand it to him.
Dude,
you look at his record, and Jericho's like, in his mind, he's like, you just hurt this guy without purpose.
Yeah.
Jericho's ready to throw with him.
Oh yeah, he's fearless. He didn't he punk Goldberg out?
Yeah, so he punked him out. He put him in a submission.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more.
Yeah, I tell you what, Jericho's one of my favorite parts of AEW. Just he's so entertaining, and he's in that atmosphere they want to boo they want to boo the good guys and cheer the bad guys, and he flips the script on them, and he's just he still he can still go. He doesn't look as good as he did 10 years ago, but who does? And he's so entertaining.
She's like, Jericho, she remembers how he looked during the whole Kevin Owens list thing, and she's like, it really looks different. I'm like, I know. That was like, what, 3 years ago?
Right.
Yeah. Motherfuckers.
Yes, it is.
He went somewhere where, he doesn't have like the guy who owns the company going, I like jacked up guys.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that AEW is getting got as popular fast, because it's not just jacked up guys that are getting big pushes. I mean, Darby Allin's a small guy, Jungle Boy's a small guy. If either of those guys were in WWE, they would have been on 205 Live, and instead they're getting to really go as far as they can, basically.
Well, that, and they also it seems like they let them do their own promos.
Yeah.
They don't have some wannabe screenwriter writing these soliloquies for these wrestlers to trip over.
Right. Yeah.
I remember the words.
You're gonna love this. This is gonna probably piss you off. Boomer just told me that I didn't even know this, but Boomer told me, like, what was it, earlier this week? You said before Raw and SmackDown they air a disclaimer.
What was it for? What?
It says. It basically says, like, the following is portrayed by actors, and they don't mean what they're saying. It doesn't reflect them as people, just as actors. And yeah, and the whole thing going around right now with Ronda Rousey is she's saying that wrestling's not real competition, and getting a lot of heat for it. And I'm like, they tell you that before the show goes on, and it's weird because they're basically it's essentially a magician before a show saying, hey, what I'm about to do is an illusion, but you're supposed to take it seriously because the commentators are saying that this is a legitimate fight, but it's really not. But this person saying it's not is hurtful. It doesn't make any sense.
And based on the disclaimer alone, I think AEW should win the wrestling war. And we know, like, there's things with AEW I really like, and there are things with AEW, like Orange Cassidy, that I really don't like.
Right.
But at least they don't air a disclaimer ahead of time.
Yeah.
That is the Wall Street corporate fucking side of it.
Yeah.
The problem, Vince isn't pushing a wrestling promotion anymore. He's pushing a sports entertainment promotion. He's pushing something that soccer moms could be okay with their fucking 16-year-old kid watching. Here's the thing. They're not watching it, and neither are wrestling fans. Their fucking ticket sales are going down. Well, before COVID, their ticket sales were falling down. Their ratings were falling down. Because they created a watered-down fucking fight program.
Yeah.
Look, when I watch, and I know there's people that argue for the PG era bullshit. When you watch two people that want to fight each other, they don't fucking hold back on their words.
Right.
They don't say, like, I'm going to kick your butt.
Right.
Okay, hit your fist at each other, don't even say that. Can I ask you a question? What would you think all the fighters in the real competition towards Vince is fucking UFC.
Right.
And UFC handing them their ass. How do you think any of the fighters would respond if Dana White walked up to them and said, hey, don't say anything too mean, don't say fuck, don't say these bad words? All the fighters will look at him like he's a bitch.
Do you hate money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that Vince has let his product turn into that shows you he's always about talking to the fucking shareholders, investors.
Yeah.
Did a thing we're talking about.
We could turn that back around to like all the releases right now, because guess what next week is? It's when Vince has to have a call with the shareholders to talk about their quarterly earnings.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the thing with growth with a company, with any sort of like form of entertainment. Everyone thinks the more the merrier, the better. The more the merrier, the better. The more something that used to be niche becomes less niche, the more you get a mainstream audience that only has a 15-minute appreciation for the thing.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Fucking new metal between 2005 and 2011. I'm being generous there. Let's say maybe 2001. It was the hottest shit in the fucking world. Now most of those fucking bands can't even give away fucking tickets anymore.
Yeah.
You know, there's only like 6 bands that can fucking make money. The rest of them can't fucking sell a ticket to fucking for their life. You know.
Right.
It attracted non-metal fans to the show, and what happened is when the non-metal fans got done hearing their hit song, they quit giving a fuck about it.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing with wrestling. A lot of this shit is very fucking simple, but you have a bunch of asshat fucking business degrees that think that they fucking know what they're talking about because they got a business degree or whatever,
Right.
dictating. You know.
Well, you heard about how Dr. Tom Pritchard was let go from FCW, right?
No.
Oh, okay. So he was like the guy that everyone respected when it came to training and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird. There's some guy who was like a quote-unquote legit athlete. I think he played volleyball or some shit. They brought him in to be like the head trainer or whatever. So he goes into the locker room or, you know, in the middle of the ring, he's talking to, you know, all the new people and everything, but he just kind of came off like he was talking down to everyone. So Tom Pritchard sends him a, you know, he calls him. I'm sorry, I thought he was going to send an email, but no, he called him up on the phone. He's like, hey, you just came off like an asshole in front of the entire talent roster we have. I know you didn't mean to. So here's why I would suggest how to fix it. The guy got pissed and hung up on him, but then called the main office and said Tom Pritchard called him an asshole, and then they're letting Tom Pritchard go.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, you know, back in the day, they would have just, you know, probably went out and hit each other a couple times and then buried the hatchet. But yeah, that's what happens when you get in, when you make wrestling corporate. You know, Vince McMahon is a very polarizing figure. You know, some people still hate him for tearing up the territories. Some people praise him for the heights that he took wrestling, but you know, he destroyed a lot of people along the way, and I don't think that gets mentioned enough. You know, obviously a very great promoter. I'm sure, you know, he's a good person, but he's just you know, he's
Well, bring up the damage he's done to pro wrestling itself. Was it was about like 8 months ago? My old roommate posted something on Facebook. He said, "Who did the most damage to pro wrestling?" And everyone's, you know, of course, everyone's given the comment Vince Russo. That's the obvious one. I was like, what about Vince McMahon? And everyone's, you know, kind of like all quiet. I'm like, the territories,
yeah,
the wrestlers who have died because of not having adequate health care.
right.
Well, and also let's look at, he brought Wall Street into wrestling.
Yeah,
That's never a good idea.
thing right there.
Yeah.
I will say, with becoming more corporate, it being safer is never a bad thing.
Yeah,
So I will give it that, with the corporate culture. Look, the big red fucking Hell in a Cell looks stupid as shit. I get it, and it's plastic. But when someone gets hit by that thing or gets rammed into that thing, you know, it's safer than what it used to be.
right.
You know, they are a lot safer now than when they were in the Attitude Era and beforehand, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's Mick Foley.
Yeah. But the
Well,
thing is, though, Vince has had a huge roster for the last few years. I don't get where he can't, you know, when someone gets injured, throw somebody else in there, book them, you know, decently, and then let them build, and then, you know, you have another star. I don't know. He's got to have only like 4 fucking mega stars.
Yeah.
The rest of them got to be
For apparently he it's like I forget who said it, that he'll never let Brock go as long as he's got a name, because he views him as his attraction, and he's, like I said, a great promoter, but he's not a booker. He's not a wrestling guy, and he needs to bring some wrestling guys back in and let them book the shows.
I think that's the role that Triple H seems to be filling right now.
Did you guys ever see the video of Brock fucking launching that belt at Vince?
No.
It's got to be great to be Brock to get away with just being such a dick to Vince.
Right.
Wow.
All right. So let me ask you this, because you brought this up earlier, Chris. How do you think WWE is able to remain open as an essential business?
Well, it's bullshit. That's strictly it. It's straight up fucking bullshit. Maybe Vince had his buddy Ron DeSantis, the governor of fucking Florida. If you ever paid attention to his campaign to become governor, he was a Trump loyalist. So maybe that call got made to get them deemed essential. That is the biggest crock of shit in the fucking world.
Right.
I have nothing against them creating a distraction for this terrible situation that we're in.
Right.
But they're gonna end up putting asses in seats again and potentially cause a health fucking risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's Ron DeSantis' fucking call. I don't think it's a good one.
Right.
Well, what do you think about them with Vince coming out and saying, originally the plan was they're going to film 5 weeks worth of television and then just air that, but Vince changed his mind last week and said, no, now we're just going to film live. Everyone has to come down to Orlando every Monday and Friday.
Yeah.
Well, he probably knew something was fucking in the fix to get it so he can perform live.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of these guys, as a wrestler, you have a shelf life. Performing during this time in front of an audience, it's going to fucking lower a lot of people's shelf life. I mean, again, Reigns, I wouldn't even he needs to just be staying at home.
Carmella took off. That's why Tamina was thrown into that 5-woman elimination match at WrestleMania. Carmella just wanted, she didn't feel safe. She went home. You gotta wonder, is there going to be repercussions because of that?
There shouldn't, but you never know.
And the thing that kills me is the companies that did, because GameStop was doing this shit where they're refusing to close down, and they kept considering themselves an essential business. After it hit the internet and the world fucking found out about it, it did not help their image at all.
Right.
So I don't think with this and all the Saudi dealings with Vince, with the Crown Prince, basically kidnapping his fucking wrestlers, it's not going to help the image of the WWE, who's this anti-bullying, good as good fucking company. In the long run, it's a bad fucking idea.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I see. I like the way that AEW is doing it, because it has like an underground street fight kind of vibe, where it's like WWE is just going through the motions without a crowd.
Well, they play to the crowd that isn't there.
Yeah.
If you watch WrestleMania, but Baron Corbin comes out, he's pointing out to the empty seats and he's like yelling stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing?
Right.
Like, to me, I liked it better how Sami Zayn did it, because Sami came out, he's just working directly with Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
Everything he says is directed right to Daniel Bryan, and Sami Zayn is just a great wrestler in my book. He knows how to talk, he knows how to move, but a lot of these people were playing to an audience that wasn't there, and that's because that's the way they're trained.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And yeah, that could be a whole nother show about how the performance center, training people from the ground instead of them going through the indies, how that's not working. But I'm going to wrap it up with this last question I want to ask each of you. So besides the COVID-19, there's been another pandemic flowing through America, and that's the Tiger King fever. So I was talking to Adam about this a little bit earlier this week. Who do you think is going to be the first wrestler for a major company, be it in Mexico and Japan, Ring of Honor, TNA, AEW, Major League Wrestling, that dons a Joe Exotic-esque persona? I know who my answer is, but I want to hear all of you who you think it could be. So I'll ask you first, Adam.
Company-wise, I could see WWE doing it just because you got these fighters in there, and they're like, "Oh, this is popular. Let's do this."
Yeah.
Oh shit! Wrestler-wise, I'm not sure because I could see like fucking Kenny Omega doing some stupid shit like that. At the same time, I could still see like The Miz, since The Miz is like their big whatever star.
Yeah.
They've been as a movie star. I could see him doing that shit. The joke I made to my wife was, there's only one Tiger King, and his name was Calvin.
Right.
I like that.
All right. What about you, Chris? Who do you think?
Oh, you guys are gonna be shocked. I've not even seen the fucking show.
Yeah, neither have I.
All I've seen is the fucking memes.
Yeah. Well, you all need to watch it for sure. But who do you think might don a Tiger King gimmick here soon?
Oh, I think they'd be trying to take somebody from the like from maybe something like, if Vince does it, it'd be someone from NXT that he pulls up and gives that retarded fucking gimmick to. And I mean, here's the thing: it could sound stupid at the beginning, but it could be something that ends up turning out to be fucking gold.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Exotic himself, he sold himself fucking really well on that. So
yeah.
I mean, so it could be something that turns out pretty good.
Okay.
If given in the right hands. I know they just released No Way Jose.
He could have done it, yeah.
Or he could probably. I'd put my money on him doing it in the Indies.
Okay.
Something like. Just because sometimes that flashy, goofy stuff. I mean, yeah, you might be a mid-carder, but the crowd eats it up. So.
Yeah, I agree, and especially it's probably not as popular as it was a couple weeks ago, but it's still very, very popular. What about you, Mike? Who do you think could do it?
Oh, we lost Mike a while ago.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about 20 minutes.
Oh, I just thought he was being really quiet like he normally is. Well, I'll tell you guys my my vote. It's actually someone in WWE, and it's someone who's done probably 5 or 6 name changes, and that's Johnny Nitro. I could see him being Johnny Exotic. He was Johnny Blaze, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Impact. I could see him doing that, and I actually think he could do it pretty well.
Yeah, and if there's one person that could sell it, he's criminally underrated. He's a fucking great
For
guy.
sure. He still looks phenomenal. He's that him introducing parkour into his moveset, it makes him very interesting. And yeah, I definitely think he could do it. And I think it would be super over. But we'll go ahead and wrap up the wrestling roundtable. I'm sorry that we lost Mike, but we'll try to get him. Hopefully all the shit's lifted soon, and we can actually sit around a real roundtable.
I do want to point one thing
Sure.
out. If you look at the one that got let go, I still want to point out that Lars Sullivan still has a job by them. Figure that one out.
Yeah. Good point. But apparently they've got more releases coming in NXT. I know they released some today, but maybe that's something that we can talk about next weekend. But again, thanks for joining me like this. Hopefully soon we'll get back to a normal routine. And But thank you guys for joining, and stay safe out there and watch some pro wrestling.
All right.
All right.